There is a mass hysteria right now that somehow Donald Trump is siphoning off Joe Biden's black voters. Stop this insanity. It's nonsense. It's not going to happen. I have polling to back this up on today's episode, and I'm going to show you how unscrupulous pundits and pollsters manipulate numbers to create a non-existent story that black voters are abandoning the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is beloved in the black community. Now, I didn't know that until he went down to South Carolina in 2020. I expected Bernie to connect with the black voters. It was Biden, and it was black voters who got Joe Biden nominated and pushed him over the top in those key battleground swing states in November of 2020. There is, however, a phenomenon of black politicians, pundits, and pop stars who maintain that black people love the Republican Party. They say Dr. King was a Republican, and so was his father, yes, until the 1960s, until Robert F. Kennedy and Jack Kennedy bailed him out of jail. The entire paradigm shifted in the 1960s with the passage of the Civil Rights Acts of 64 and 65. You all know this. And yet, Candace Owens, Kanye, Clarence Thomas, Senator Tim Scott, Congressman Byron Donalds, Herschel Walker, and the batshit crazy Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, insist that Democrats take the black vote for granted. They say that it was Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program that created a culture of dependency in the black community. They say it was the Great Society that hurt the black family. You even had Byron Donalds last week insisting black families had it better under Jim Crow. Lyndon Johnson's Great Society didn't destroy the black family. It was the pushback during the Reagan years that hurt the black family. It was the cuts in Social Security. It was the tax cuts for the rich on the backs of the middle class. That's what hurt the black family. It was the CIA dumping crack cocaine into cities like New York, Los Angeles, Compton, Harlem. It was the CIA dumping crack cocaine to fund their illegal wars in Central America. That's what hurt the black family. 45 years of supply-side economics is what hurt the black family. The Great Society lifted millions of Americans out of poverty. I don't know what it's like to be black. I know it's been hard for Senator Tim Scott and Congressman Byron Donalds and Kanye. I know it's been hard for the Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, Clarence Thomas, Herschel Walker, and Candace Owens. I also know they think they did it all on their own, and they don't understand why everyone else can't. I know some of them, like Clarence Thomas, think they were the beneficiaries of affirmative action, but now believe they were hurt by affirmative action rather than helped. I wouldn't presume to know how you get to that place. But here's what I do know. If you're black, Jewish, Arab, Muslim, Hispanic, if you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, if you're Asian, a woman, if you're living with a physical or psychological disability, if you're middle class, upper middle class, or poor, you are not welcome inside of the Republican Party. They hate you. They pretend they like you, but they hate you. This is the party of billionaires and white Christian ethno-nationalists who have declared war on women, the LGBTQ plus community, black people, Hispanics, the poor, Arabs, Muslims, anybody who is a member of a marginalized community, this Republican Party under Donald Trump has declared war on you. This is the party of Donald Trump. Stephen Miller, who wanted to shoot migrants. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Steve Bannon, Nick Fuentes, Paul Gosar, David Duke, Charlie Kirk, and Laura Ingraham. If you don't know who these people are, they are the backbone of the Republican Party. If you don't know their storied history of endless racist remarks, well, then you've got your head in the sand. I can assure you, and I'll show you the numbers later, black people are not voting for Trump, and they are not voting for any other Republicans. It's a fallacy that Trump is stealing the black vote from Biden. Black voters are not stupid. They remember George Floyd. They remember the Black Lives Matter protesters and how Tucker Carlson, the darling of the Republican Party, how Fox News, how everybody in the Republican Party and everyone surrounding Donald Trump, how they all defended Derek Chauvin, as well as Kyle Rittenhouse. Black voters remember. Let me play you Marjorie Taylor Greene from last week. I played it on my last show. This is why black voters are not going to abandon the Democrats or Joe Biden. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is Donald Trump's opening act. This is what she said about George Floyd. I have to warn you, the language is a little rough, but this is the Republican Party unfiltered.
We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshiping Trump, worshiping as a convicted felon. He is a convicted well, yeah, so is George Floyd. And everybody, and you all too, the media worship George Floyd. Democrats worship George Floyd. There were riots burning down the fucking country over George Floyd.
Okay? Black people are not voting for this woman or her party. So stop it. Knock it off. Stop saying this. I'll show you the polling later on in the show, and it's going to make you really angry about this mass hysteria. Just stop it. Black voters are not abandoning Joe Biden. And if you believe that, you need to develop your critical thinking skills. You're reading the wrong newspapers and magazines, listening to hucksters, preying on anecdotal evidence, and manipulating numbers. And I'll show you how they do it. This is the mop-up for June 10th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you for finding me. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. And of course, subscribe to this channel and my newsletter. If you would like a transcript of today's show or previous episodes, please visit shopdavidfeldman.com. The transcripts are free. I'm also giving away a Harvard diploma, and you can buy a Harvard coffee mug. It's misspelled, but who cares? Just go to Shop David Feldman Show and download a free Harvard diploma. And make sure you get your official Trump fart filtration mask. These are very important. He may be coming to a town near you. You don't want your lungs scorched by one of Donald Trump's Big Mac discharges. It's what the pros wear. I've asked people not to do this, but they're buying the chef's apron that says, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." This is not what I'm about. This is not who I want to be. Don't buy this. This is sending me down a very bad road that's going to jeopardize the show. You should not encourage this kind of self-destructive behavior. It's a hostile gesture when you buy junk like this. So knock it off. The chef's apron that says, I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea. Do not buy this. It makes me sick in the head. It makes me think that, it gives me bad ideas. So don't do it, please. Don't buy it for July 4th. We have new polling out this morning, good polling. I don't mean good polling for Biden and the Democrats. I mean, it is good for the Democrats and Biden, but it's reliable polling, not bought and paid for polling, like the Republican shill Rasmussen. That poll is paid to create the illusion of Republican momentum. This is polling from YouGov. Now, no polling organization in America comes close to YouGov in terms of quantity and quality. There are 3 other polling units that performed slightly better than YouGov did in 2022's midterms, but it was a razor-thin difference. YouGov was at the top. And when it comes to quantity, nobody comes close to YouGov. YouGov is polling every day. They're building up a reliable database for their subscribers. This is why The Economist and CBS News rely on YouGov. YouGov is the best. So, here's the headline. Biden wins in November. Democrats take back the House, and they keep the Senate. That's the headline. Now, why are they going to keep the Senate? Because every single Republican candidate who's challenging Democratic incumbents has never won an election before and is just plain horrible, which is why they're trailing in the polls. Don't look at how Biden's doing in the swing states. Look at the updraft he's going to get from the Democratic incumbents in the swing states who are running for re-election. In Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Montana, Nevada, you have 6 Democratic incumbents running against MAGA Republicans who have never won an election before and are unlikable idiots. You have Carrie Lake, a washed-up anchorwoman in Arizona. And then you have these unattractive financial trolls, hedge fund managers, or owners of car dealerships running in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Ohio. In Nevada and Montana, Republicans have put up 2 war veterans, which makes them attractive politically until you get to know them. The veteran running in Montana against Testor can't keep his story straight about when and how he was injured. Sometimes he says it was on the battlefield. Sometimes he says it was when he accidentally dropped his gun on a camping trip with his family. In Nevada, Republicans are running another veteran who has tried over and over again to win an election. He can't. None of these Republican candidates in these 6 states, none of these Republican candidates for Senate have ever held elective office. They don't know how to get the vote out. They don't know what they're talking about. They just are reflections of Donald Trump. And you're not going to win an election parroting Donald Trump. All 6 of these candidates are pretty much endorsed by Trump. They have 0 experience, just like Donald Trump. But unlike Donald Trump, they don't have any charisma. They're mean-spirited, but they're not funny the way Trump is, and it's why they are all losing in the polls, the good polls, even the bad polls. It's why they're going to lose in November. So this just doesn't mean Democrats keep the Senate. It also signals this updraft I keep talking about. Joe Biden leads from behind. He will be lifted by the Senate Democrats running for re-election. Voters might be lukewarm about Biden, but they're not lukewarm about Casey in Pennsylvania, Baldwin in Wisconsin. And remember, Biden just needs those two states plus Michigan and is reelected. Okay, new polling from YouGov, straight, fresh from the oven. Trump leads Biden by 1 percentage point nationally. That's well within the margin of error. It's a dead heat. But here is where it gets really important. Biden has momentum. He's leading by 1 point. Granted, it's within the margin of error, but his trajectory is upward in the key battleground states. He's leading Trump, according to the YouGov poll, which is the gold standard. Biden is leading in the key battleground states of Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Biden is narrowing the gap. We're seeing a post-Trump trial momentum for Joe Biden. Biden was paying a political price because of that Manhattan criminal trial. When Donald Trump plays the martyr, he does better. But when he has to run on the issues, he loses. Trump just had his best fundraising month for the entire election cycle. May was great. He brought in $141 million in May. Why? Because the perception, it's wrong, but the perception among donors was Trump was being unfairly prosecuted by Alvin Bragg in Manhattan. So throughout May, remember the trial started on April 15th. The all of May was the trial. So for May, the money came pouring in. But then what happened at the very end of May? What happened on May 30th? He was found guilty. Not good. Not good. The guilty verdict won't affect Trump's fundraising prowess. He's moving away from small donors to the big ones. He used to depend only on small donors. This cycle, the small donors are abandoning him. They come to realize whatever they give is going to go towards lawyers or Melania's divorce settlement. So small donors have abandoned Donald Trump. He pivoted and has begun raking in cash as he appeals to the billionaire class. One of the most underreported stories this year is that the Trump tax cuts expire in 2025. Those tax cuts added $8 trillion to our national debt. Joe Biden says he's not going to renew them. Again, he and the Democrats could have reversed those tax cuts when Biden took office, but he's going to let the tax cuts for the wealthy lapse in 2025 in his second term. Meanwhile, Trump is promising donors that he's not just going to renew the tax cuts for the richest 1%, he's going to cut their taxes even further. And so the fundraising gap that existed, where Biden was outperforming Trump in terms of raising money, that's now over. Trump's campaign is well funded. Where those funds go is another story. The money isn't going towards his reelection, but Trump is begging for money, making all sorts of promises to big money donors. When he was president, Trump tried to ban TikTok because of that company's ties to the Chinese government. Well, this year, President Biden signed into law a bipartisan bill, ordering TikTok to sell off its majority stake to an American company or a company that's friendlier to the West. If TikTok doesn't sell its majority stake, according to this bill, it will be banned in America. After that bill was signed into law, Trump completely reversed course. And last week he said, I will never ban TikTok. Out of the question, he said. Why? Well, Kellyanne Conway is now a lobbyist for TikTok. She hasn't registered as a foreign lobbyist, but she's lobbying for TikTok. Who's paying Kellyanne Conway? Club for Growth. And who pays Club for Growth? Billionaire megadonor Jeff Yass from Pennsylvania, whose investment firm, according to the Financial Times, has a $40 billion stake in TikTok. Much of Jeff Yass's multi-billion-dollar fortune is tied up in TikTok. And so earlier this year, Club for Growth, which is funded primarily by Jeff Yass, Club for Growth, met with Trump down in Florida, and they said, oh, no. You're for TikTok. You're against TikTok being forced to sell. I mean, if you want any donations from Club for Growth or any dark money from Jeff Yass, you're for TikTok. And Trump said, I'm for TikTok. When did I ever say I was against TikTok? So in terms of fundraising, Trump is going to be just fine. The problem, of course, is he can't help himself. He sees a pile of cash and he has no impulse control. He doesn't see the money to be used to win the election. That is why his idiot daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, was made co-chair of the RNC. Trump wants all that money, not just to pay his legal fees, to solve his liquidity problem and renegotiate a prenup with Melania, which I'll get to at the end of the show. I've heard some things that are really interesting about this sham marriage. It's all about his liquidity problem. Forbes just wrote a story on how Trump is probably generating revenue for his business, his failed businesses, by once again forcing our Secret Service to stay at his hotels on our dime. He did this back when he was president. Whenever he traveled, Trump always tried to put the Secret Service up at a Trump property and then charged them $1,185 per night. That's what we know of. The cash being donated to the RNC right now, Trump sees that as a windfall. He sees that as his. He wants to charge any down-ballot candidate 5% of their campaign contributions if they use his likeness in an ad. It's all his. It's my party, and I want all the money. Every time the Republican Party does a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago, Trump overcharges the party for use of the room, for the food, the alcohol. And then there are the hundreds of shell companies he set up that perform services for the Republican Party, all perfectly legal. Around the country, the Republican Party is throwing banquets. They need caterers. They need printing. There are so many ways to channel RNC cash, Super PAC cash into Trump's failing businesses. That's why Lara Trump was installed as co-chair, to make sure that the party always chooses to hire one of Trump's shell companies. Now, while this mafia-style bust-out of the Republican Party will temporarily solve Trump's liquidity problem, none of this will get him elected president again. Look at this key number in the YouGov poll. Biden leads Trump by 1% in the battleground states. These are the results from a YouGov poll, gold standard YouGov. This was taken right after Trump's conviction. Remember, the trial helped Trump. A lot of people thought he was being unfairly prosecuted in Manhattan. And quite frankly, it's not unreasonable to think that the hush money trial was a little unfair. I mean, he was guilty, but we're talking about prosecutorial discretion. Alvin Bragg didn't need to bring this case, especially since it wasn't a slam dunk. Hey, I'm all four Al Capone, they brought him up on by any taxes, by any means necessary. Lock this bastard up. But it wasn't a strong case compared to the other three criminal trials Donald Trump has coming. So Trump got a slight bump in the polls because he was a martyr, a victim. The conviction, however, that hurt him. That moved the needle towards Biden. Because voters on the fence thought, maybe I wasn't following that trial close enough. Maybe he really is guilty. So the guilty verdict is slowly moving the needle slightly in Biden's favor. Not with the big money donors, but with some voters who are on the fence. Like I said, Biden's getting a slight bump in the polls from the conviction, slight. Of all the issues that animate swing state voters, Trump's criminality is the least of them. It's dead last. However, this conviction is part of a larger picture being painted of Trump for voters to make a decision on whether they like and or trust him. Okay? It's very important as to whether or not you like and trust the candidate. We like to think it's about all the hair splitting on issues, but in the end, it gets down to, do I trust this man? Do I like this man? In a democratic republic, voters have to rely on leaders. It's about leadership. That's the way it works. In a democratic republic such as ours, we're too busy working, ignoring our children, watching Netflix. We're too busy. We can't study the issues the way we should. We don't know how to run the government, which is why, at least when it comes to the federal government, we don't do referenda. We don't do a referendum on an issue. We vote for leaders who we trust to handle those issues. Now, there are a lot of issues that I don't understand. I don't know where to stake a position, so I rely on my leaders. Ralph Nader, Howie Klein, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Rashida Tlaib, and yes, Joe Biden, among others. I'm not sitting in congressional hearings. I need to trust my leaders, the ones who share my principles, to guide me. So, when people say I'm voting for Biden because I like him, I trust him, that's not trivial. That's not superficial. I like Biden means I trust him. Character in a democratic republic is important. Now, a lot of us, including me, back when Clinton was president, we dismissed the importance of character because of the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. We said, that's not important. What's important is getting things done. Clinton's getting things done. Who cares about his character? I said that because at the time I really, really liked Bill Clinton, and he had a character problem. Character is important. Obama has character. I've got a lot of quarrels with Obama's home in Martha's Vineyard, his home in Hawaii. I don't see him marching with the Amazon union or the Starbucks union. I think he spends too much time with Bruce Springsteen and Steven Spielberg. I have a lot of problems with Obama. But I knew who he was. in 2008. He didn't disguise who he was. He was a Harvard-trained corporatist lawyer. We knew that in 2008. He became a community organizer and decided that politics was where change is made, which is true. If you really want to affect change in this world, you run for Congress. That's where the big decisions are made. But in order to get elected and stay elected and get things done, you have to compromise in order to affect change. Look at Bernie. Look at all that Bernie has accomplished because he's willing to compromise. The idea of accepting Obama, even though he wasn't my first choice, he wasn't my second choice in 2008, but with Obama, you said, if we can't have single payer, I guess we'll have to double profits, triple profits for health insurance companies by passing Obamacare. Not great. It's, at best, the art of the possible. Obamacare is not great, but it's still better than anything Republicans are offering. Now, in the end, I trust Obama. If you listen to him speak, he levels with you and explains why he made these choices. He's a Wall Street sellout who doesn't spend his retirement the way Jimmy Carter did. God bless Jimmy Carter. Obama is way too comfortable with the elite. But I trust Obama. I trust that he truly believes that what he got done was what he believed was possible, given the Republican and corporate opposition he was up against. He should have jailed instead of bailed the bankers. An argument could be made. I won't make this argument, but it did occur to me back in 2009. I don't know if you remember how terrifying capitalism died in 2008. When he took office, the world economy was teetering. And I wanted the people responsible locked up. I wanted the banks nationalized. It did occur to me that locking up the bankers, as satisfying as that sounds, it might not instill confidence in our monetary system. They still should have been locked up. Or at least he should have had his Attorney General, Eric Holder, try to lock them up. But Eric Holder was a much bigger corporate shill than Obama was. Look, I'm talking about character. I didn't vote for Obama until the general election. He was my third choice. I wanted John Edwards in 2008. Then I wanted Hillary Clinton. I didn't think we deserved, I remember saying this, I didn't think we deserved Obama. I said Obama was dessert. I said this country has been doing horrible, horrible things in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in New Orleans, to ourselves, to the middle class. We don't deserve Barack Obama. We don't deserve a pat on our back. We deserve somebody like John Edwards, who was talking about the two Americas. John Edwards was really the first, since Reagan, the first Democrat to really push the idea that there are two Americas. He didn't get it. Then my second choice was Hillary. Then it was Obama. So we ended up with Obama. I trust him. Whether you like it or not, we elect our leaders more on trust, more on likability than we do on issues. That's not superficial. That's not trivial. Now, look at this. In the battleground states, Biden is beginning to pop. He's leading a little within the margin of error, but he's got momentum. This is the electoral map I built for you 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to keep showing it to you until Election Day, because no matter how many times I tell you to stop freaking out about Donald Trump, you keep freaking out about Donald Trump. You allow news organizations to gin up excitement and anticipation by scaring you, by misreading polls so that you pay attention and keep watching. This is all you need to look at. Get a screenshot. This is, what I'll do is I will, next to the free Harvard diploma, I'll do a printout of this for you to download and just keep looking at this from now until Election Day. Calm the F down. Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Yeah, I know I'm a broken record because you won't stop freaking out. So I'm going to keep telling you it's Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and Biden's going to win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And I'm going to keep repeating that over and over again until you stop freaking out and calm the F down. The problem isn't me repeating myself. The problem is it goes in one ear and out the other. You keep freaking out, believing that black people are abandoning Biden or that Trump is going to win. There is no way Trump is going to win. Zero. Okay? So I'm going to repeat myself because some of you are driving me crazy with these panic attacks over Donald Trump. Okay? Okay. This is what I'm doing. I'm repeating myself, but I'm making a larger point. I have given, in this map, I give Trump Georgia and Arizona, okay? I'm giving Trump, Georgia and Arizona, which Biden won in 2020. Take it. He may lose, Georgia's on he's not losing Arizona, but you know what? Go ahead, Donald Trump. Have Arizona, have Georgia. I'm going to give Trump North Carolina, which Biden is going to win. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, the Republican, is running for governor, and Josh Stein, the Attorney General, is the Democrat, and that is going to be the updraft that Biden will be the beneficiary of. Okay? But I'm going to give North Carolina to Trump. Josh Stein the Democrat is going to be elected governor, but I'm going to give Trump North Carolina. I'm going to give Florida to Trump, which is back in play. Biden and Obama won Florida in 2008 and 2012. Hillary almost won in Florida. She lost by a little more than 100,000 votes out of 9 million. She lost by a little over 1%. Then something happened in 2020. Trump beat Biden by 400,000 votes out of 9 million. Not a lot, but a little more than we thought was fair. How'd that happen? Well, Trump was the beneficiary of one of the greatest voter purges in U.S. history. I have a video out on this. It's called How Florida Elections Are Rigged. It's horrifying. It's on my YouTube channel. It's called How Florida Elections Are Rigged. So why did Trump do better in Florida 4 years ago? Because the fascist governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, targeted black people, poor white voters, ex-prisoners, and made it next to impossible for them to cast a ballot. I went over that last week, and I posted a video called How Florida Elections Are Rigged. Watch it. It is horrifying. But DeSantis is no longer as powerful and as popular as he was back in 2020. The bloom is off the rose. Biden now, according to some new polling, Biden is within striking distance in Florida. Why? Well, people are beginning to realize what a horrible human being Ron DeSantis is. There's a travel advisory. The NAACP has a travel advisory for Florida. It's not safe for black people in Florida. The largest lobbying group for the LGBTQ community has issued a travel advisory for Florida. It's not safe for the LGBTQ community in Florida. Biden is within striking distance because of that, and because Florida has the worst abortion ban in the nation. But the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court in Florida, they upheld the abortion ban, but they also said abortion could be on the ballot in November. So, abortion is on the ballot in Florida on November. DeSantis and Trump do not want that. Over and above that, let me tell you something. Obama and Biden won Florida. Come October, after what is expected to be one of the worst hurricane seasons on record, you send Obama and Michelle down to Florida. You send Bill, you send Hillary, Bernie, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren. When the federal government starts rescuing Florida after the hurricanes, this Republican-controlled state that has sucked up to the oil companies while being decimated by climate change. Remember Chris Christie hugging Obama after Sandy? Florida is going to be very much in play come November. Now, I hope the hurricanes don't do any damage to Florida, but it's going to be tough for Donald Trump to be saying drill, baby, drill in a state that is being decimated by the oil companies. So, all that being said, I'm giving Donald Trump Florida. I'm also going to give him Nevada, even though Hillary and Biden won Nevada. And look at this sea of red. Look at this. Look at this sea of red. All Biden needs is 270. And that's exactly what he gets when he wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Take a screenshot. I'll post this tomorrow on my website so you can use this as a security blanket. Look at that. All those other blue states are set. Okay, Maine, by the way, somebody asked me, why is Maine red? For the same reason there's a speck of blue in Nebraska. They don't have winner take all. So the Maine is mostly rural, and that's the part that Trump wins. But the lion's share of the electoral votes in Maine go to Democrats. You just can't, it's a speck. And then in Nebraska, there's a speck. That's a one electoral vote for Biden. You need 270. Trump gets 268. That's it. Okay? Nothing's changing. California, look at this. Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, Illinois, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut. None of those states are going to flip to red. The only states you have to worry about are Michigan, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That's it. Well, voter turnout is the key to all this. Trump has zero updraft. there isn't a single Republican candidate running for Senate or governor who will boost turnout for Trump. If anything, they're going to suppress the turnout. There is not a single culture war issue on the ballot to boost turnout for Trump or the Republicans. Democrats are putting abortion on the ballot in every swing state, either with a referendum or running against a Republican candidate who is beholden to the religious right, and that the religious right will drag the party down with the candidates. The candidates are going to be dragged down by the religious right and abortion. You don't animate the Republican base by getting them to vote against abortion. Those days are over. People are going to get off their asses and vote for reproductive freedom. They did in Kansas. They did in Ohio. This is why in the battleground states, the YouGov poll of registered voters shows Democrats are a little more likely to actually vote than Republicans are in the battleground states. Okay? 87% of registered Democrats say they're going to vote. 86% of Republicans in battleground states say they're going to vote. That's a 1% edge. So this is how you misread a poll, okay? Nationally, Trump has a 12-point lead in enthusiasm, right? It says 90% of Republicans, registered Republicans, say they're definitely going to vote, whereas only 78% of registered Democrats say they will definitely vote. So you would look at that and say, well, I guess there's an enthusiasm gap. In 2020, however, Democrats had a 5% lead in registered voters over Republicans. There were 5% more registered Democrats than there were Republicans. So I'm not going to do the algebra here, but with 5% more voters, 78% of registered Democratic voters turning out will more than match the Republican vote, the 90% of Republican votes. There are more Democrats than Republicans. So, yes, nationally, 90% of Republicans are definitely going to vote. There aren't enough of that 90% to outweigh the Democrats, especially as Democrats get more scared and more motivated and more frightened as Trump gets scarier and angrier and more insane. The closer we get to Election Day, the more Trump is losing it. He's saying crazier and crazier things, talking about revenge, suggesting he'd like dictatorial powers. He's promising to pardon the January 6 protesters, as he calls them. And he keeps threatening violence, warning he can't control his supporters. January 6 is not a distant memory. One of the issues that's gaining traction among swing state voters is the future of our democracy. That is moving up. More swing state voters are concerned about democracy. Why? Why would they be concerned about democracy? It's a sign that these voters are beginning to realize the economy is much better. And when the economy is better, it frees voters up to worry about loftier issues like democracy. First, you worry about rent, food, then you worry about loftier issues like the future of our democracy. The fact that the future of our democracy is beginning to move up in the swing states as an issue suggests that those voters are a little more content economically. Trump has moved himself further and further to the right. He's tried to be a moderate when it comes to abortion. He's failing at that. He did get Arizona to overturn its 1864 abortion ban. And he succeeded in making sure that Mike Johnson doesn't try to pass a national 15-week abortion ban. He's selling his position on abortion as a states' rights issue, which is the only thing he can do. But it's not good enough because he's pissing off the evangelical vote. So he's got to cater to the evangelicals. And when he caters to the evangelicals, they drag him down. Next week, he's scheduled to speak before the Danbury Institute. The Danbury Institute is as far right as you can get. Homophobic. They say they will not rest until abortion is eradicated entirely. No exceptions. This is not how you win elections, speaking to groups like this. This is not how you win over suburban women in the swing states. But Trump needs these deeply disturbed, crazy evangelicals. So he's got to cater to them. He's threading a needle that can't be threaded. Threaded, throtted. So, in order to keep you interested in this race, journalists, most, are committing the sin of omission. We keep hearing about Biden's unpopularity. We keep hearing how Biden is disliked, and we've never seen a president whose approval rating is this low. Well, the sin of omission is Biden's unpopularity is part of a larger trend where everyone and everything in America is despised. You may not have noticed, but Americans hate everyone. So yes, Biden's approval ratings, according to a new Reuters poll, has hit a 2-year low. But many polls show Trump's approval rating even lower. When the news media says Biden's approval rating is at an all-time low, the sin of omission is not asking the follow-up. Compared to whom? Because compared to Trump, Biden's approval rating is stellar. This is from the same YouGov poll of registered voters. Okay, registered voters were asked last week, when it comes to how they conduct themselves, do you like Joe Biden or do you like Donald Trump? Look at this. Only 49% of registered voters like Joe Biden. Okay? Now, if you want to omit some facts, you can now say only 49% of registered voters like Joe Biden. He's underwater. That's not good, right? You could say, the White House is in panic mode. Oh no, what are we going to do? More registered voters dislike Biden than like him. We have a messaging problem, blah, 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 blah. And you could say, and they do say, that the White House and the Biden campaign is in a state of panic over this. That's the sin of omission. What they're leaving out is that in the same poll, only 33% of registered voters like Donald Trump. This is fantastic news for Joe Biden. In a climate where nobody likes anyone or anything, the fact that Joe Biden has a 16-point edge over Trump when it comes to likability. Well, right there is the election, because elections are about trust and likability. This is a democratic republic. We don't vote on issues. We think we vote on issues. We vote for candidates we like, because wrapped up in likability is an entire suite of factors, from trust to where they stand on abortion, guns, Gaza, to how they conduct their personal lives, and whether they're corrupt or honest. That's what likability means. And likability is what this entire election is about. Okay? But let me show you this poll, because I make mistakes reading polls. I don't always get it right. But again, same question, different version of the question. Do you dislike Joe Biden? Do you dislike Donald Trump? Joe Biden, 51% say they dislike him. 67% of registered voters dislike Donald Trump. Right there is the election. Right there is the election. Trump is running as an incumbent. He's a known quantity. In 2016, he wasn't likable, but people liked him because he wasn't likable. He played the heel. But after 9 years of his garbage, he's become even more unlikable, and now people don't like him because he's unlikable. Nobody finds his unlikability likable. We don't like him, period. He has a 16% deficit when it comes to likability. That's the election. Incumbents don't get reelected when the American people don't like them. That's why he lost to Joe Biden by 7 million votes. And it's why he's going to lose in November again, but this time by even more. Nobody likes Donald Trump. They're afraid of him, but nobody likes him. Melania hates him, Ivanka hates him, his children hate him, Mike Pence hates him, and he's a convicted felon. Period, full stop. And now all the criminal trials have been delayed until after Election Day. That means he can't play the victim card. Now he has to run on his record. He has to run on his 4 years as president and his vision for America. He has to defend those 4 indefensible years. He has to stack up his record as president versus Joe Biden's. He's got to tell the American people a story about his vision for America, not a pretty one, not a pretty one. And he's got to get the American people to like and trust him. And that's never going to happen. The American people are never going to trust him or the down ballot candidates he's endorsed, which is why he's going to lose. The Republicans are going to lose the House, and the Democrats are going to keep the Senate. You know, a year from now, I'm using my Trump fart filtration mask. A year from now, when Joe Biden is in his second term, and I'm no longer calling him the most consequential president since FDR, that happens to be true, but that's not saying much. A year from now, when I will pivot further to the left and stop being protective of Joe Biden, and I'll stop defending the Democrats, a year from now, in Joe Biden's second term, I'll be calling for heads on sticks within my own party. And a year from now, I'm going to say, of course Joe Biden beat Trump. A one-eyed rat could have beaten Donald Trump. How could Biden not have beaten a twice impeached, convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, who was the only president since Herbert Hoover to have left office with fewer jobs than when he began? And he crapped the bed on COVID, killing 1 million Americans. Of course, Joe Biden beat Trump. That's what I'm going to be saying a year from now. Right now, I'm all in on Joe Biden. 100%. Better president, maybe, than LBJ. LBJ, got the Great Society that was, pretty big, but Vietnam erases a lot of that. So Joe Biden will go down in history as the most transformative president since FDR. These bills weren't named like Medicare or Social Security. The bills that Biden passed fly under the radar. He's playing a game of inches, but it all adds up. But for me, it's not enough. I want free health care, free tuition at all public universities. I want universal preschool. I want to tax billionaires out of existence. So a year from now, I'm not going to be pleasant. Anyway, Trump can't run on his record. He can only run on lies. That's all he's got. Here is Donald Trump speaking to reporters at Trump Tower after his conviction. Here he is deflecting and distracting and lying.
Our country's in serious trouble. We owe $36 trillion.
Yes, and $8 trillion of that is because of your tax cuts that you gave to the very rich, which you plan to renew and make even deeper if you somehow make it back into the Oval Office. When Trump left office, the balls on this liar to complain about the debt. When Trump left office, roughly 1/4 of our entire national debt was because of those tax cuts for the rich. And then because he crapped the bed on COVID, the Congress had to spend trillions because we had to prop up the economy. Conservatively speaking, between his tax cuts for the rich and COVID spending, Donald Trump is personally responsible for 1/3 of America's entire national debt. No president has ever racked up this much debt as Donald Trump did. And of course, he famously called himself the king of debt when he was a businessman. He was the king of debt. Please continue.
Our country is in very bad shape.
Okay, that's a lie. Our country is in much better shape than it was when you were president. By every yardstick, by every measure, this country is in better shape. Trump gets away with these lies because they're fast, furious. It's a fusillade. It's a fire hose of lies. And the only way you can accurately report a Donald Trump speech or interview is to just stop him and correct his lies. Because all he does is lie. But the media, you can't correct him because it's boring. So the media will tell other stories. And the media neglects to do what they're supposed to do, and that is correct each and every one of Donald Trump's lies. And because too many Americans get their news from comedians with podcasts, Fox, they get their news from Newsmax, too many of them believe Trump's lies. They go uncorrected. For example, this is what happens. MarketWatch reports that despite the stock market being up 12% for the year, close to half of all Americans think the stock market is down for the year. It's not. It's up. The S&P 500 is up 12.1% for the year. And if you add in dividends, the total return for the S&P 500 for 2024 so far is 12.8%. Most people, including me, or the people who work on Wall Street, don't understand the stock market. So if Donald Trump says, when he lies and says, I speak to my friends in corporate America and they tell me Biden is killing this economy, that's a lie. Biden isn't killing this economy, and that's not what Trump hears when he talks to anyone in corporate America. The only conversations he has with anybody in corporate America is they want to know where the money is that he owes them. That's the only conversation Donald Trump has with corporate leaders. So why is the stock market up? The CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. The stock market is up because of good old-fashioned Keynesian economics. The polling on this shows that in the swing states, voters say America's economy is horrible, but the economy where I live is doing pretty good. See, there's what they're told to believe, and then there's lived experience. Their lived experience in the swing states is, the economy is pretty good. But I turn on the news, I listen to podcasts or Donald Trump, he's telling me that the economy is horrible. Don't believe your own eyes. This is the messaging problem that Democrats are up against. There is a lie machine. The Republicans have a propaganda machine that spews nonstop lies. From The Guardian, a majority of Americans wrongly believe the U.S. economy is in recession, and they blame Biden. A recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, GDP, right? There are 4 quarters to a year. You get 2 quarters in a row where the economy shrinks instead of grows. That's a recession. We're not in a recession. Now, to be fair to the American people who mistakenly believe we're in a recession, this economy only works for half the country. This economy only measures how half the country is doing. How we measure the GDP, how we measure unemployment, it only measures the economy for people who vote, who haven't fallen through the cracks, people who are participating in the above-ground economy, people who are interacting with our government either through paying taxes and or receiving benefits. That is why the economic numbers under Biden can hit record highs, and still, according to Bloomberg, half of middle-class Americans say they struggle financially, because they are struggling financially. Rent remains unaffordable. Buying a new car, seeing a doctor, even with health insurance, going to a dentist, feeding your family, sending your child to a public university, all of that is unaffordable for a lot of people. So it's wrong. We're not in a recession, but it's understandable why so many people think this is a recession. Too many Americans are forced to pay normal living expenses by putting everything on their credit cards, and because the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates high, servicing that debt has become impossible for the middle class. There is no question Americans are suffering financially. I can't make excuses for that. I can't be glib about that. They were suffering financially under Trump. They were suffering under Obama. They've been suffering since Reagan. I'm a class reductionist. To me, everything comes down to a downward redistribution of wealth. That's what I believe in, to redistribute wealth downwards. If you ask me how to solve most of this country's ills, I would start with waging class warfare. It's been waged on us. It's time for us to bite back. We tax the rich down to size because when you take their money, it gives them less money to influence our politicians with. See, they'll always say, well, you can take all of Warren Buffett's money. That's not going to pay for free tuition. Well, it actually will pay for a lot of things, but taxing the rich down to size means the rich can't tamper with our political system because they can't afford to. That's how you get the money out of politics. You get the money out of the hands of the billionaire class. This is why I voted for Bernie and not Biden. And by the way, I don't have a problem with money or people doing well. I want everybody to do well. I want everybody to be able to take a vacation. I want everybody to be able to afford to go to the theater, see a movie, go out to dinner. I don't have a problem with people doing well. I have a problem with people doing too well. At some point, it stops being about survival and becomes about luxury. And I'm fine with luxury, right? This is why earlier I said swing state voters are beginning to worry about democracy. That's a luxury. They're no longer, not all of them, but some of them are no longer worrying about economic survival, so they have the luxury to worry about whether or not we're going to become an authoritarian state. If you're about to become homeless, you don't give a crap if this democracy lives or dies, okay? So I'm all for luxury for everyone. So when you see these billionaires turning work and competition into this game, how much can I earn? I'm fine with that. I understand a lot of sexually dysfunctional men can only take the measure of themselves by how much they earn each year. I get that. Go ahead, earn as much as you want. But at a certain level, we're taking 90% of it, like we did back in the 1950s. I get it. You want to earn $1 billion a year. That's fantastic. And if you can earn $1 billion in 1 year, as Sollozzo said to Don Corleone, salute. But the government is going to take $900 million of that. You can still say, I won the game, right? I made $1 billion this year. And by the way, thank you for earning $1 billion, because we're going to take 900 million of it and house the homeless and feed the hungry. So you should be proud of yourself. Good on you. That's what I believe. You're not going to get that from Joe Biden. You're getting a little of it. You're getting a little lip service. But Joe Biden, I mean, we knew who he was when we voted for him in 2020. I hope you voted for him in 2020. I know we have a lot of Bernie supporters here who didn't vote for Joe Biden. I knew who Joe Biden was. Joe Biden spends every Thanksgiving in the home of David Rubenstein, who founded the Carlyle Group, one of the world's biggest war profiteers. David Rubenstein is a war profiteer. He's got his name on the Kennedy Center. He buys his way into the PBS and gets to host his own show. He's a the Mark Twain Prize, puts his name on everything. Despicable greenwasher. Just has enough money. He's a war profiteer, David Rubenstein. Look at the Carlyle Group. Joe Biden spends Thanksgiving in David Rubenstein's home. So I know who Joe Biden is, but I also know who Donald Trump is, and he's worse than David Rubenstein. Right now, Donald Trump and the Republican Party are a problem. Just like climate change is a problem, Republicans are a problem. Partly caused by the Democrats, partly because under Clinton, right, they pivoted away from unions and the middle class and sucked on the teat of Wall Street, and that they no longer represented the workers, and so the workers turned to phony populism like what the Republicans are offering through Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is a problem, and we need to solve Donald Trump. It would be nice if we didn't have to worry about Donald Trump and we could solve climate catastrophe, homelessness, income inequality. The reason we have Donald Trump is because we didn't solve income inequality, because we didn't redistribute the wealth, because the Democrats abandoned labor and the worker. They gave that. Trump fills the void left by Bill Clinton, who was a darling of Wall Street, as was Obama. But we made, the Democrats made, that's why I say a year from now, I want heads on sticks in the Democratic Party. I want a purge. But we need to solve Donald Trump. Now, the amazing thing about Joe Biden, in the 3.5 years he's been in office, he's done a pretty magnificent job, a methodical job, filleting Donald Trump. Merrick Garland has done a fantastic job prosecuting January 6th. The special counsel has done a fantastic job prosecuting everyone who was involved with January 6th, including Trump. The problem is the Republicans control the courts. Biden has done as good a job as he can, as he's capable of, tackling climate change. He needs to do much better, but he's tackling income inequality. He's repaired our infrastructure. He temporarily raised more children out of poverty than any president in American history. But it should come as no surprise that middle-class Americans are struggling financially. We didn't elect someone who promised to declare war on billionaires. We could have nominated Elizabeth Warren or Bernie. We got Joe Biden. Now, with all the problems we have, the economy has never been better. One of the reasons interest rates remain so high is because Joe Biden continues this winning streak, creating more jobs than any president in U.S. history. Jerome Powell over at the Fed is keeping interest rates high because the Fed believes full employment, which we have now, is inflationary. Full employment is when the unemployment rate hits 4% or below. We're there. This is what Humphrey Hawkins wanted, the Humphrey Hawkins bill. 4% unemployment or lower. We got that. Now, a perfect economy is considered 4% unemployment with an inflation rate between 2 and 3%. What we've got right now is the economy is growing, people are working, prices, inflation is rising, but at a slower rate than the economy and wages. Of course, the problem with this economy growing is if it keeps growing at this pace, our planet will suffocate and we will all die. But that's for another discussion. We need another set of yardsticks to measure the well-being of our economy. We need new yardsticks to define economic growth. As Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s father famously said, the GDP measures everything except that which makes life worth living. Well, the May jobs report came in, and it was another blowout, defying all expectations and making it really difficult for Maria Bartiromo over at Fox News to spin this as a bad thing. The rap, the lie about Biden's record job growth has been the jobs are only being created in the public sector, not the private sector. That's what Republicans love to say. Oh, this job growth, it's just government jobs. That's a lie. The rap against Biden's record job growth has been that record job growth is inflationary. And that's what's keeping interest rates high. That's a lie. And who would want to believe a recession is good for the economy? Republicans. You know, the last time, I think when the March job numbers came out, Maria Bartiromo tried to spin it as, well, this economy's running too hot. This means the Fed is never going to lower interest rates. Republicans like recessions. At least the people who run the Republican Party love recessions because, well, people are unemployed, so they're desperate. They won't ask for raises, try to unionize, and they'll do what they're told. Republicans love recessions because the people in charge of the party don't need to work. The people who run the Republican Party don't need to work. They have plenty of money. They love recessions because they're sitting on a stockpile of cash, and recessions create buying opportunities. Plus, interest rates come down in a recession, which makes stocks a better investment. So the stock market will go up as interest rates go down. And you can buy real estate in a recession at distressed prices and at the same time take out cheap loans because the Fed is lowering interest rates to jumpstart the economy. A recession, if you're rich, is an opportunity. Anyway, the other argument against Biden's explosive job growth is that wages aren't keeping pace with inflation. Not true. So here is Fox News suffering through Friday's job report, and you can hear one of the guests laughing, like, we're so screwed. How do we spin this into bad news?
Because this is something, Maria. This is something. 272,000.
272,000 new jobs. Okay? Here we see 7 Fox News financial analysts. Look at them. They're trying to figure out how to make this look bad. Go ahead.
272,000. Everybody, the estimate was 185,000. And by the way, that blows even the top of the range from economists going in. The range was 120 to 258, and we came in at 272.
We came in at 272,000 new jobs. Some were predicting it would be as low as 120,000 new jobs. Instead, it was more than double. 272,000 new jobs. And you look at these 7 panelists, these are all money people. They love money. They're laughing because they will say and do whatever's necessary to keep cashing their Fox News checks and their Club for Growth checks. But they're laughing because they know they have to act like everything they say hasn't been proven demonstrably wrong, right? The evidence is in. They're laughing because they're thinking, I just got to keep lying. I just have to keep lying. Continue.
So this is something else. All right.
Okay, the woman doing the reporting, I think she's actually trying to hurt Maria Bartiromo. She's not helping. Go on.
Private sector 229, and that's higher than expected. So the private sector number was 229K. We were only looking for 170.
Okay, you didn't need to report that. You're supposed to say, when I have time, Maria, to go over these numbers, I have no doubt that we're going to find that most of these new jobs came from the public sector, from the government. It's the government creating these jobs, not the private sector, and that's what's causing our debt, and these are not real jobs. You're not supposed to report that 229,000 jobs were created in the private sector, and only 43,000 jobs were created as government jobs. You're not supposed to report that. What you're doing over at Fox News by reporting that 229,000 jobs were created in the private sector is you're telling Fox viewers that Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act wasn't socialism. It created jobs in the private sector. Not government jobs, private sector jobs, which is why the stock market is through the roof and unemployment is at record lows. You're supposed to report that everything Joe Biden does is socialism. Okay, let's find some bad news, please.
All right, let me get into the earnings, because that's the inflation story I was kind of wanted to hit this a little bit.
Yes, inflation, sure. Biden's creating record job growth, but he's creating inflation, and wage growth isn't keeping up with inflation. Tell us that lie. Certainly, you're going to do your job and tell us that lie.
That came in pretty much in line. Average hourly earnings, the estimate was a gain of 0.3%. We came in at 0.4%. And then year over year, 4.1%, which is a little bit hotter than expected. So again, these are wild numbers, by the way, everybody.
Wild numbers. Undeniable. So wage growth was a little higher than expected. We have wage growth of 4% year over year. That means wage growth is outpacing inflation. The inflation rate year over year stands at 3.5%. But wage growth is 4.1%. So while inflation still needs to come down by 0.5 of a point to hit the sweet spot, wage growth is outpacing inflation. Those are the numbers. This is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Jimmy Carter, God bless him, truly a great man, at least his post-presidency. By the time you hear this, Jimmy Carter may no longer be with us. Jimmy Carter was a one-term president, and a lot of people are comparing Joe Biden to Carter, insisting inflation got bad under Carter. That's why Reagan beat him. And Biden's inflation is just as bad as Jimmy Carter's. You might have heard that. At least the Republicans like to say that Biden's going to be a one-term president, just like Jimmy Carter, because of inflation. Inflation right now is 3.5%. In 1980, when Carter was running for re-election, inflation almost touched 15%. By the summer of 1980, when the conventions were being held and the impression of the economy was cemented into the voters' heads, inflation was at 14.4%. All right? That's 1980. Inflation for all of 1980 was 13.5%. Okay? That's 10.5 percentage points higher than where inflation needs to be. The Fed wants inflation anywhere between 2 and 3%. Biden's inflation rate is 3.5%. That's 10 percentage points lower than Jimmy Carter's in 1980. Carter's inflation rate was 10.5% over the speed limit. Biden's half a percentage point over the speed limit, with wages outpacing inflation. This is not, God bless him, Jimmy Carter's economy. As for unemployment, under Carter in 1980, unemployment averaged 7.5%. Under Biden, it's under 4% full employment with Biden. You cannot create more jobs than Joe Biden has already created, yet somehow he finds them. Joe Biden is not Jimmy Carter. Inflation right now is just half a percentage point above where it needs to be. And that's not because inflation is not because of the overheated economy. We are now learning it's caused by greedflation. Companies are raising prices. Why? Because less competition, deregulation. Companies are buying up the competition. And when there's no competition, there's no place for consumers to go. This inflation is not being caused by supply chain issues or an overheated economy. It's caused by what is called pricing power. When you are the only game in town, you can charge whatever you want. Now, the stock market is getting smaller. There are fewer companies being traded on the stock exchange. In 1996, there were 7,300 publicly traded stocks. Now there are 4,300. Where did they all go? We have fewer publicly traded companies. Where did they all go? Well, private equity bought a lot of these companies and took them private. But the major reason there are fewer and fewer companies is our FTC and our Justice Department, up until the Biden administration, refused to stop bigger companies from swallowing the smaller ones. Reagan became president, and bigger was better, and let big companies buy out the smaller ones. The Justice Department's policy was they wouldn't block a merger unless it affected consumer choices, unless it caused prices to rise. If a merger didn't result in consumers being forced to pay more, because they had fewer options. The Justice Department wouldn't enforce antitrust laws. So these corporations, with their high-priced lawyers, they convinced the Justice Department not to prosecute. And so the Justice Department allowed the AT&T merger, and then the other AT&T merger, and then the other AT&T merger. They allowed the hospital merger, and then the next hospital merger. They allowed the cable companies to merge. They allowed Disney to buy Fox. And they said it won't affect the consumer. It's not going to cause prices to rise. It's perfectly fine. That's a lie. You know that's a lie. Our cable bills went up. Our phone bills went up. Our medical bills went up. Cost of going to a movie went up. And now, with all this consolidation of these companies, they get to charge whatever they want. That's why there's greedflation. It's horrible with the snack foods, like junk food. The big junk food control. It's only a couple of companies that control big junk. I'm not going to go there. But now Biden's FTC and his Justice Department, they're trying to block, or at least try to sue to block these mergers. But the FTC and the Justice Department are going before way too many judges who have been appointed by Donald Trump. So the problem is greedflation, and greedflation is caused by pricing power that flows from companies being allowed to merge. This is not Jimmy Carter's economy. God bless him. In 1980, Reagan was able to win because we were in a slight recession in 1980. In 1980, there were 2 quarters. I think it was the first 2 quarters of 1980. When it was revised, it revealed a slight recession. In 78, Carter's second year in office, the economy grew at 5.5%, which is impressive. The next year, 1979, inflation got worse and the economy grew at a little more than 3%. Not a recession, but it suggested the economy was slowing down. And then in 1980, when Carter ran for re-election against Reagan, inflation almost hit 15%, and the economy shrank by a little more than 0.2 of a percentage point. That was enough to convince the American people Reagan will make things better. Reagan took office in 1981. By 1982, his recession was the worst recession since the Korean War. The economy shrank by nearly 2% with his recession. A recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. This is our nation's GDP. This is our economy, quarter by quarter, going back to 2009 when Obama took office. And this goes all the way up to the final year of Trump's presidency. And you can see Obama's first quarter, we're still in a recession coming off the financial crisis where capitalism died because George W. Bush refused to regulate Wall Street. Obama, over an 8-year period, turns the economy around. Not great growth because his stimulus package came in under $1 trillion. It's way too small, but there was no recession under Barack Obama. He had 2 bad quarters over an 8-year period. He left Trump with a solid economy. Not great, but solid. And then you see Trump becomes president and the economy chugs along, but it begins to slow, right? Trump never gets the highs, the growth that Obama got. And you can see in the last couple of quarters, it begins to slow. And then 2020 comes around and we get the worst economic plunge since the Great Depression. The nation's GDP dropped more than 30%. Okay? So look at that. So Trump's economy, the 4 years, he never hit the highs that Obama did, and he was slowing down, right? He juiced the economy in 2017 with the tax cuts. You see those 2 quarters? And that's just a sugar high from the tax cuts for the wealthy, and then it just goes down and down and down. Couple of 1 or 2 quarters pop, but it was trending downward. And then, of course, COVID. And disaster. Completely tanked under Trump. And 1 million people died from COVID because he crapped the bed. No country, one of my listeners wrote to me in the comments section, and I forgot to mention this, so thank you to the listener who reminded me of this. No country had more deaths per capita or total deaths from COVID than the United States. Because Donald Trump didn't know how to mobilize the economy, the government. He couldn't get equipment where it was needed. Again, this is a fact. Under Donald Trump, America handled COVID worse than any industrialized nation, worse than Italy. Remember how bad things were in Italy? We ended up doing worse. More total deaths and more deaths per capita because Trump is an idiot and the economy plunged. And then we see, what do we see here at the very end, the last quarter of his presidency? The economy grows by more than 30%. But how can the economy grow by more than 30% if it's been shut down? Trillions upon trillions of dollars in government spending pumped into the economy to keep it afloat. So, when Donald Trump says,
Our country's in serious trouble. We owe $36 trillion.
of the $36 trillion, as I said earlier, 8 is from Trump's tax cuts for the rich, and then tack on a couple of $1 trillion spent to keep the economy going during COVID. And it's safe to say that by the time Joe Biden took office, Donald Trump, in just 4 years, created 1/3 of our entire national debt. No president created as much debt as Donald Trump, which is why the only way he can run is by lying. This is Biden's economy. And it looks like we had a recession in 2022. I can't tell if that's the end of 2021. No, I think that's the start of 2022. We had a slight recession. Nobody noticed it, but it's been full steam ahead. Now, I know this is boring. I know I lost my listeners. I don't know who's left. I know it's boring. This isn't about, I'm sorry, it's not about Trump having unprotected sex with a porn star right after his wife gave birth to their son. And that is important. Character, like I said, counts. Trump has no character. He's a liar. He blames the $36 trillion national debt on Joe Biden because Trump has no character. He cheats. He cheats on his wife. He cheats at golf. He cheats in business. He borrows money, claiming billions of dollars in collateral that he doesn't have. He cheats on his taxes. He owes at least $300 million to the IRS that we know of. He cheats his relatives out of their share of Fred Trump's will. He cheats his workers. He cheats anybody who ever worked for him by refusing to pay them He just doesn't pay contractors. He forces them to take him to court, and then he declares bankruptcy 6 times in order not to pay his bills. This is why character counts, because the economy is very complicated, and we need leaders who tell us the truth, because a lot of this is too hard to understand, and the media isn't going to take the time to explain it because it's boring. It is. What I just went through is boring. If you don't have money, money is boring. And most people don't have money. So this is boring. Which is why Trump thinks he can get away with saying this to Sean Hannity last Friday.
I've done more for black people than anybody since Abraham Lincoln.
I have done more for black people than anybody since Abraham Lincoln. Dr. King, Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, Maya Angelou, Oprah, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Rosa Parks, Bayard Rustin, A. Philip Randolph, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Lyndon Johnson, Reverend Dr. William Barber, Maxine Waters, Congressman Barbara Lee. Donald Trump has done more for black people than all of those slackers combined. He said that. He said he's done more for black people than anybody since Abraham Lincoln. It's just so racist for him to say that. It's stupid. It's racist to think black voters are as stupid as Donald Trump is. But go ahead, Donald Trump, insult our intelligence.
And they understand it. They really understand it. And they also had the best job numbers they've ever had. They had the best job numbers they've ever had during the Trump administration.
Yeah, and of course, Sean Hannity didn't correct him. There's no question Trump inherited a solid economy from Barack Obama, and black workers participated in Trump's economy. And you know when black workers really participated in Trump's economy? In 2020, during the first year of COVID. See, while most Americans were in lockdown, a disproportionate number of black Americans were still working. Amazon, supermarkets, delivering food, working in hospitals, driving buses, keeping our infrastructure going, doing all the work that couldn't be done remotely on Zoom. They were our first line. A disproportionate number of black workers were the ones who were risking their lives showing up to work. Yeah, they participated in Trump's economy. Testing kits for COVID under Trump were not being distributed, however, to the black community at the same rate as they were being distributed to upper middle class neighborhoods, upper class neighborhoods. So yeah, in 2020, black Americans participated in Trump's economy, an economy that had been shut down for mostly everybody else, which is why the COVID infection rate for black Americans was double that of white Americans. But let's get back to Trump's lie about creating more jobs for black people than any other president. This is Donna Brazile talking about his lie, and this is from PolitiFact checking Trump's lie. The all-time low was set for black workers was set under Biden less than a year ago when black unemployment fell to 4.8% in April of 2023. This statistic has been kept since 1972, so all time really means about 5 decades. Black unemployment has risen slightly since then while remaining low historically. Okay? So the true numbers here we go. Black unemployment when Trump left office, 9.3%. Okay? Black unemployment today in May, 6.1%. Okay? Those are the facts. So here is where I get really angry. Okay? At the top of the show, I told you I was going to show you why it's a myth that Trump is siphoning off black voters. And this makes me really angry that people believe this. For weeks, I've been telling you black people are not voting for Trump, and I get pushback from some listeners who give me anecdotal evidence. Why do you, they say, keep saying Trump isn't winning over the black voter? And I say because black voters, just like Jewish voters, aren't stupid. And if you think black people are going to vote for Trump, you're stupid. This is from YouGov. It's the latest polling. YouGov is the best. No polling company is as accurate or prolific as YouGov. That's why CBS News and The Economist work with YouGov, and this makes me angry. In a poll of likely black voters taken last week, 81% of black voters say they're voting for Joe Biden. Where are people getting the idea that black people are abandoning the Democratic Party? I'm going to show you in a second. Now, 18% of black voters say they're voting for Trump, but I'm going to assume half are just messing with us. They don't want the Democratic Party to take them for granted. Now, there is no Democratic Party without black voters. Black women, to be specific. Joe Biden knows this. Joe Biden will win this election because of suburban women in the swing states. But it's really going to be won by suburban black women in the swing states. Black suburban women control this Democratic Party, and they are not voting for Trump. This makes me very angry that this hysteria has filtered up. And I'm going to show you some stuff here just to show you how this hysteria gets created. Jews and blacks are not voting for Trump because Jews and blacks know who is anti-Semitic and who is racist. So why is the media reporting that Trump is winning the black vote? Because it keeps us interested. Now look, YouGov, best polling unit out there, I pay extra to see their internals. So I'm going to share some of their internals to show you how the media manipulates numbers to keep you interested. It's how they create this mass hysteria that black voters are abandoning Biden. I have access to YouGov's entire database, and so I decided, since this election is going to be decided by suburban women living in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, I created a demo that YouGov can tell me about, okay? To stress test the black vote. I decided randomly to pick a black woman this is the demo, black women between the ages of 55 and 64. I'll make them Protestant, living in the suburbs of Michigan. Let's make her straight. Let's give her some college. What do you see here? Biden gets 87% of the vote from that demographic. Trump gets 13% of the vote. Okay? So how do you make it look like Trump is stealing votes from Biden? If you're unscrupulous, you go down and you look at how Trump performed in 2020 versus how Joe Biden performed in 2020. Okay? You see what's going on here? Biden got 6% of this demographic's vote in 2020. Now he gets 13%. Okay? See what's going on? He's doubling this demographic's vote, but it's still a landslide. Okay? Let's look at Pennsylvania, another swing state. Okay? So, I know this is boring for most people, but this is how ridiculous narratives get built. Okay? 81% of likely black voters say they're voting for Biden. Yet you keep hearing that Biden is losing support from black voters. How does this myth propagate? Again, from the YouGov database. This is, let's go big on Pennsylvania. So I created in Pennsylvania a demographic, a demographic of black women from the suburbs of Pennsylvania. I made them younger. I can do that. I can make black women younger. It's a gift I have. I made her between the ages of 25 and 34. She's straight with a high school degree. And I made it difficult for Biden. I made her an evangelical. You know that Biden has a big problem with evangelicals, right? Trump has the evangelical vote locked. But look, Biden gets 72% of this vote. That's a tough vote to get. He gets 72%. It's tough with evangelicals. If I punch in, if I make the demographic, same demographic, but I make her Protestant, it jumps up. Biden gets 84% of the vote. If I make her Muslim, 84% of the vote. The evangelical vote is a tough one for Biden. And look, he gets 72% of the evangelical vote of this demographic versus, what is that, 20, I got to go big here. What is that, 28% for Trump. Landslide. It's a landslide. How do you say that Trump is stealing Biden votes? Because in 2020, the same demographic, only 15% went for Trump. Now it's 28%. So if you need a story to tell, you can say that Trump has doubled the black vote. He's doubled his vote with black people. He's still losing by a landslide. And look at this. This makes me really angry. 81% of black voters are voting for Biden. Now, the internals that I show you, if you want, they will tell a different story, but they don't provide an accurate one. If you have $1 million and I have $1, you're doing better than I am. Next year, if you have $1.5 million and I have $2, you are still doing way better than I am. But I could tell another story. I had $1 last year, $2 this year, That's a 100% increase for me, whereas you only had a 50% increase. You might have $1.5 million, but I have $2, but my return was 100% and yours is 50%. I think I'm doing the math correctly here. And so I could spin this, David Feldman. I can show you how to double your money in 1 year. I doubled my money. I went from I won't tell you that I went from $1 to $2. This is how people manipulate polling to create false narratives that Trump is winning over the black vote. Biden has 81% of the black vote. Stop it. Just stop already with Trump getting Biden's black vote. You're being manipulated. And it makes me really angry because we need critical thinking. We need media that bores listeners like I'm doing right now with facts. We need listeners willing to tackle boring stuff like this. Otherwise, Trump can get away with saying,
I've done more for black people than anybody since Abraham Lincoln.
By the way, people keep asking me, you're way too confident. No, I'm not. I'm terrified. Why do you think I'm poring over these polls? I'm terrified of Republicans. But I see 81% of the black vote going to Biden. I see 54% of the female vote going to Biden. Independents, I see 50% for Biden, 48% for Trump. The female vote for Biden is going to be much higher. The problem with the female vote is white women. They vote for Trump. But now he's an adjudicated rapist. And these white women are going, I think they're going to tell their abusive husbands that they're voting for Trump, but they're not voting for Trump. They won't vote for Biden, but they're not voting for Trump. Women are not voting for Trump. Even white women. Women know who Trump is, the same way blacks know who Trump is, the same way Jews know who Trump is, the same way Muslims, Arabs, Hispanics. Women know who Trump is. Women know he's a rapist. They know. And the fact that he's a rapist means he's a bad president. He was a bad president, and he would be an even worse president because he's a rapist. Character counts. Are you going to trust an adjudicated rapist, a convicted felon, with top secret classified material? He gets classified material in the Oval Office. You're going to trust him with that, especially since he's already been indicted for mishandling those national secrets? He is not winning. Okay? Tell me another lie, Donald Trump.
We were energy independent for the first time ever, and now we're begging Venezuela for oil.
That's a lie. May 2nd, 2023, from Forbes. This is the magazine Trump is obsessed with. To Trump, Forbes that's where he gets his information. We learned that during the civil fraud trial, he constantly lied to Forbes. He ordered Michael Cohen and his CFO, Alan Weisselberg, to lie to Forbes about his wealth. Headline from Forbes, U.S. energy independence soars to highest level in over 70 years under Biden. Not that this is a good thing, it's bad for the planet. This is from Forbes. Last month, the EIA, I believe that's the Energy Information Administration, released data showing energy production and consumption numbers for all of 2022. You can see all the data here. In 2022, U.S. net energy exports grew to 5.94 quads, which is the highest number on record. Total U.S. energy production was also the highest on record. Overall, the U.S. produced 2.5% more energy in 2022 than we consumed. By comparison, in 2005, the U.S. consumed 44% more energy than we produced. We are energy independent. Okay? You know what? It's time for some projection. How about a little projection, please?
And these are bad people. These are, in many cases, I believe, sick people.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that projection. A little more projection, please.
And we have a president and a group of fascists.
Biden's a fascist. Okay. And let's talk about your criminal conviction, please.
Crime is rampant in New York, violent crime. That's what he's really supposed to be looking at. Crime is rampant in New York.
That's what Alvin Bragg, the DA, should be looking at. Not going after corporate criminals, street criminals. That's what Alvin Bragg should be doing. And crime is rampant. He keeps telling us crime is rampant. Well, this is from one of your trusted sources, Donald Trump, Fox in New York. Donald Trump insists crime is rampant. This is from Fox News in New York, Fox 5. New York City officials announced city crime continues to trend downward. Okay? Crime is down in 5 out of the 7 major crime categories in the first quarter of 2024, according to the NYPD. Murder is down 7.2%. Rape is down 3.7% because Donald Trump moved to Florida. Burglary is down 13.8%. Grand larceny down 2%, and grand larceny auto is down 9.7% this first quarter of 2024 compared to the same time period in 2023. Transit crime also saw a drop, with crime on the subways down 23% in March, which officials attributed to the surge of close to 1,000 officers in the transit system. Okay, that's the truth. The truth about crime is violent crime spiked in 2020 when Donald Trump was president. It shot up about 30%. It's been coming down ever since Joe Biden became president. This is just a fact. And New York is one of the least violent big cities in America. This is just a fact. That's according to the Justice Department and the CDC. New York City is safer than Florida, and New York City is safer than Miami. Okay? So crime has come down since 2022, right? It keeps coming down. This is from a blog called Economist Writing Every Day, and he's working off CDC statistics on violent crime, okay? Remember, in 2020, crime spiked under Trump, Mr. Law and Order, right? You'd think with a fascist promising law and order, the least he could do was bring crime down. It spiked under Trump. In 2022, it began to come down under Joe Biden. The myth that Republicans persist in spreading is that New York City was soft on crime, and that New York City is dangerous. Homicide rate in 2022, it's lower now, but this is 2022. Homicide rate in 2022 for New York City was 5.2 murders per 100,000. So look at this map. This is from the Economist Writing Every Day. Headline: Alabama's homicide rate is more than double New York City's. Okay? Look at this map. The lighter shade is any state that has a lower homicide rate than New York City. So very few states have a lower homicide rate than New York City. Most of the lighter shaded states are in the Northeast, And then there are a few sprinkled out in the West. But the darker shades mean higher homicide rates. So you see Louisiana and Mississippi, they have triple the homicide rate as New York City. Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina have more than double New York City's homicide rate. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Kentucky, Indiana, all have higher homicide rates than New York City. And yes, Illinois' homicide rate is double that of New York City's. It is just a lie that New York's crime rate is rampant. Go ahead, liar. Everything you say is a lie.
We had a DA who was a failed DA.
Well, that failed DA, Alvin Bragg, just convicted your flabby cottage cheese ass. Doesn't sound like a failed DA to me. And quite frankly, the odds were stacked against Alvin Bragg. He bundled together a series of misdemeanors and turned them into felonies by convincing a jury. This wasn't easy. By convincing a jury that those misdemeanors added up to a much larger crime. Of the 4 criminal trials that Donald Trump is facing, this one was always going to be the hardest to nail a conviction. The other 3 are slam dunks. And by the way, I pointed this out before, all it took was one juror not to vote guilty, and you'd have a hung jury. And if there were a hung jury, there's no doubt Alvin Bragg would have decided not to retry this case. 22% of New York City voted for Donald Trump. If you vote, you get called for jury duty. 22% of the jury pool for this trial consisted of Trump voters. And all Todd Blanche, his attorney, needed was to get one juror. One juror. And he couldn't do that. They could have had a hung jury with just one. But they couldn't do it because Donald Trump was guilty. But please continue.
This is a case where if they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone.
Anyone who is guilty. They can do this to anyone who is guilty. Anyone who orders his lawyer, Michael Cohen, to pay Stormy Daniels hush money out of his own pocket, and then Donald Trump will reimburse Cohen more than double if Michael Cohen falsely bills Trump organization, charges the organization for non-existent legal services. That's forgery. That's falsifying business records, disguise hush money payments in order to deceive the American voter. It's a violation of campaign finance and election law. But most importantly, nobody thought Alvin Bragg was going to win this. It's a stretch. It's a stretch that they got these convictions. It really is, especially since 22% of the jury pool voted for Trump. Go ahead, liar.
Now, I would have testified. I wanted to testify.
But I didn't want to get charged with perjury. You never were going to testify. You're never going to testify. You're a liar. You'd be convicted of perjury.
Now, I'm under a gag order, which nobody's ever been under. No presidential candidate's ever been under a gag order before.
Because no presidential candidate is an adjudicated rapist who was just fined $500 million for defrauding lenders. No presidential candidate, no ex-president ever faced 4 separate criminal trials, one in Manhattan, one in Miami, one in Fulton County, and one in Washington, D.C. No presidential candidate intimidated witnesses the way you did, intimidated judges, court employees, prosecutors. No presidential candidate used his bully pulpit to unleash his mob that doxed and phoned in bomb threats to judges and their families, prosecutors and witnesses. You have Michael Cohen, who testified against you, and he was just doxxed. His wife and daughters were doxxed right after the jury convicted Trump. Trump is under a gag order because everyone who has tried to enforce the law, from Fani Willis to Judge Arthur Engoron in the civil fraud trial, to E. Jean Carroll, to special counsel Jack Smith, they have all required round-the-clock protection because of what Trump says. Had this been any other defendant, he would have been locked up. Go ahead.
I'm under a gag order, nasty gag order, where I've had to pay thousands of dollars in penalties and fines and was threatened with jail.
Jail. Yeah, you were threatened with jail. Everyone else would have been jailed, not threatened with jail. And you didn't pay thousands of dollars in fines. Your super PAC paid them. So go ahead, tell me why you're innocent.
They're falsifying business records. That sounds so bad. To me, it sounds very bad. You know, it's only a misdemeanor, but to me, it sounds so bad.
No, it's not only a misdemeanor. It's a collection of misdemeanors bundled together that revealed a larger crime. That's what it is. Lie some more.
When they say falsifying business, that's a bad thing for me. I've never had that before.
You've never had that before, really. How about this year, where you were found guilty of defrauding lenders in order to pay $500 million fine? How about when the Trump Organization was found guilty of tax fraud 2 years ago? Or in 2019, when a judge fined you $2 million for illegally misusing charitable funds? Should I go on? How you've been banned from ever creating a charity or holding a charity event in the state of New York because you falsified records and stole the money? Did I mention you're also a rapist? Go ahead.
I paid a lawyer, totally legal. I paid a lawyer a legal expense.
No, that's not a legal expense. You paid Michael Cohen roughly about $400,000 to reimburse him for the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, which were about, what, $130,000? So you paid him more than double to cover his taxes. You told him to bill the Trump Organization, and in order to be reimbursed, call it a legal expense. That is not a legal expense. That is an illegal campaign contribution that Michael Cohen made to your presidential campaign. The hush money payment was a contribution in kind. It's against the law. You broke the law silencing Stormy Daniels and depriving the voters of the information they needed to make an informed decision. And you falsified business records. It's all against the law. But here's the great thing, Donald. It's prosecutorial discretion. It was a weak case. It wasn't that big a crime. And a lot of people thought you would win this. But you didn't win it because you surround yourself with idiots like Todd Blanche, because you're an idiot and you're a loser. Keep lying.
It's a legal expense. Think of that. This is what the falsification of business records were. And I said, what else are you going to call it?
A conviction.
What else are you going to call it?
A conviction. Call it a conviction. You've been convicted. With some, it was weak cheese. That's what a loser you are. Of the 4 criminal trials, you were supposed to win this, but you lost. And now this is the only trial until Election Day, which means heading into Election Day, you're a convicted felon. You always lose. You lost the E. Jean Carroll trial. You lost the civil fraud trial, this trial, the Trump University trial, the defrauding a charity trial. You lose. 6 bankruptcies. You're a loser. And you have no money. And your penis looks like a mushroom because it's covered in fungus. Okay. Now, this is what I've heard, and I don't know if it's true. There are a lot of people in New York City who claim to know things about Melania. Some people I trust, some people I don't trust, some people just like to talk. But what we do know is this marriage was always a business arrangement from day one. She knew exactly what she was getting into and who she was marrying. We've heard reports that she was the one who told Rudy Giuliani to call it locker room talk, to spin it as locker room talk when that Access Hollywood grab him by the P word tape was released before the 2016 election. So in 2016, there was something resembling a partnership back then where she was participating, call it locker room talk. But by then, they were living separate lives, and she had renegotiated the prenup. She wants the money, and she understands the importance of the brand, keeping it shiny so she can get a bigger cut on her way out the door. And there was never any question that she would eventually leave or he'd kick her out. This hush money trial, however, this is what I'm hearing, is the nail in the coffin. This one really stung her. It's one thing for a husband to cheat, but he humiliated Melania publicly for the whole world to see. And it wasn't so much the Stormy Daniels thing, but it was the relationship with the Playboy playmate Karen McDougal throughout Melania's pregnancy. That is what I'm hearing is the nail in the coffin. The unprotected sex with Stormy Daniels right after she gave birth, it's unseemly, but it was lust. The Karen McDougal relationship may have been, went on for almost a year while she was pregnant. That I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, that is what she considers to be the violation. Now, she doesn't care what the voters think. She's disgusted by the people who vote for Donald. She cares what her friends in Manhattan are saying about her. It's a tight-knit circle, and she's humiliated because Melania reinvented herself. But this trial sent her backwards. It exposed who she used to be. It reminded her of who she used to be. She went from a model who, let's just say, did her fair share of nude modeling, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. But when she became Mrs. Donald Trump, and then she became the First Lady of the United States, she saw herself, and her friends certainly saw her, in a completely different light. But now this trial showed Trump sleeping with a porn star and a long-term affair with a Playboy playmate while Melania was pregnant. She feels, and I don't know if this is true, but she feels she's being lumped in with these women. That Donald sees her as no different from a porn star or a Playboy playmate, and she's humiliated and angry. I have heard she hates him. How could she not? And she's disgusted by him. And this is a problem, a political problem. She doesn't come to his court appearances, and she never shows up to his rallies. What you're going to start hearing now is, where's Melania? This is now being played, the prenup is being negotiated in public. It is now her turn to humiliate Donald, or he has to pay her not to humiliate him. This is all being negotiated out in public. It's going to get more intense in the lead up to the convention. He might need her out on the campaign trail. If she's not with him, it's going to look like what it is, that she's humiliated, the marriage is over, but Trump's pride and his campaign can't have that. Now, she has shown up for fundraisers because some of that money she thinks is hers, and she has recorded some messages urging people to donate because she figures some of that money is hers. She needs to be at the convention. She needs to travel with him. But he makes her skin crawl. How could he not? We are hearing that this relationship right now is just purely transactional. There's a pot of money from all the donors, and she wants her cut. This campaign is part of the divorce settlement. If you want me to stand next to you, it's going to cost you. How much are you willing to pay? This is a negotiation. Donald needs to get elected to stay out of prison and keep his creditors at bay. But one of those creditors is Melania. So here's what to pay attention to in the next couple of weeks. If we see Melania at the convention next month, if we start seeing Melania at any of these rallies, if we see her doing what political wives do, that means Trump is terrified. It means he buckled and paid her everything she demanded. It means he's terrified of losing the election and going to jail. And he would rather give her whatever he's got left in the way of cash so she doesn't humiliate him and she presents the lie that she's forgiven him. If we don't see Melania on the campaign trail, if she doesn't show up for the convention, that's a sign that Donald Trump is looking at polling and he believes he doesn't need her. The Republican convention is a little more than 4 weeks away. One of the reasons I believe Trump agreed to do the June 27th debate without an audience is because he couldn't get a guarantee that Melania would sit in the crowd. Part of the presidential debate ritual is the tableau of the loving wife and the family sitting in the audience and then coming up on stage after. Trump would have been the beneficiary on June 27th of an audience. I suspect Trump agreed not to have an audience for this debate so he could be spared the humiliation of Jill Biden being in the audience, but not Melania. So Trump needs to make a deal with Melania. That deal has to be finalized by July 15th. And for the next debate, I think it's in September, she needs to be with him when they fly into Milwaukee for the convention. Like I said, if she's not there, that's a sign of strength. That's Trump saying, I don't need anybody. If she shows up, that's weakness. Trump has shown his hand, and he's terrified of losing in November, as well he should be. Little gossip, not necessarily news, little conjecture, some things I've heard. But pay attention to whether or not she shows up at the convention. If she's at the convention, he is scared. He gave her everything. I'm going to wrap it up. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. After Trump's conviction, Jim Jordan, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, who also chairs a subcommittee looking into the weaponization of government, Jim Jordan said he would hold hearings this Thursday looking into politically motivated prosecution, specifically the Manhattan District Attorney's pursuit of Donald Trump. Alvin Bragg has agreed to testify before this committee. So we should expect Alvin Bragg on Thursday to go before Jordan's committee. The New York Times reports that Jordan is attempting to zero out any funding for any federal prosecution of Donald Trump. It's unbelievable. In September of last year, Jim Jordan wrote a letter to the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, demanding to know if any federal funds were used in preparing her RICO trial, charging Trump and 18 others with election interference. Fani Willis wrote back to Jordan, telling him to stay out of this. Fani Willis said, Jim Jordan, you should read the Constitution, which would remind you that you have zero jurisdiction over state and local trials. Then, in her letter to Jim Jordan, she wrote that his letter revealed a complete lack of understanding of what Trump was being tried for. She then suggested, quote, you buy John Floyd's RICO book for the non-bar member price of $249. The non-bar member price. In case I forgot to tell you, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, went to law school but failed to pass the bar exam. And that was Fani Willis's way of reminding Jim Jordan that I, Fani Willis, passed the bar. My father, a former Black Panther, passed the bar. But you, Jim Jordan, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, couldn't pass the bar. So shut your effing mouth. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. If you would like a transcript of today's episode or previous episodes, go to shopdavidfeldman.com and I guess pick up a Trump fart filtration mask, a Trump Scream mug. We have some of these out, Trump Scream mugs. Get a free Harvard diploma. Get a Harvard mug. It's misspelled. Harverd, an Uncle Scam mug. These are beautiful. Did I show you the Trump fart filtration masks? You can pick up for July 4th a chef's apron that says, hope you're in the mood for for diarrhea. My nephew Leonard was supposed to get David Feldman Show cups and hoodies and T-shirts, and they came back David Ferdman Show. I'm stuck with a couple of David Ferdman Show mugs and David Ferdman Show T-shirts. There's the Trump filtration mask. We're going to do a debate watch party June 27th. I'll have more information as we get closer. There's an Appeal to Heaven flag. I'm not selling that, but I am selling an Appeal to D's Nuts flag. I don't know why I'm doing this. This is so self-destructive. Is that it? There was one. What do I got? Oh, this is made in Los Estados Unidos. And my son, Ralphie, came up with this. Why do I pee out my penis, but don't poo out my poonis? Socrates. It's a coffee mug with a picture of Socrates asking, why do I pee out my penis, but don't poo out my poonis? Socrates. And of course, who doesn't want to sit on Rudy Giuliani's face with these beautiful Rudy Giuliani throw pillows? Somebody bought one. Somebody bought a Rudy Giuliani. I'm just going to keep making things, see what I can get people to buy. Somebody bought a Rudy Giuliani throw pillow. Sit on Rudy's face. I may actually buy that. Okay. Thank you to Bob in the chat room. I don't know if you're here. Thank you to everybody who is in the chat room. Thank you to Linda Kautzman for your super sticker. And please like this episode so I remain in your feed. Please share this with your friends. Please, what else? This is an audio podcast. Take me with you wherever you go by downloading this wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to, I love this, Ralphie, my son. This made me laugh so hard. It's a picture of Socrates. Why do I pee out my penis but don't poo out my punis? Socrates. This is how I'm self-destructing. Goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Bye.